Drop it.
And shalom, everyone. Shalom. I want to welcome everyone to King James Bible University Precept Mastery. And today we have pretty much a full plate. We're going to be going through a lot of things today. I just want to make sure. Once I finish up here, we go in the back and we get all the precepts. However, I want to make sure when you go to the back today, we have to put in a little work, because I'm going to give you some headings I need you to put in your books or put in your notebooks, however you take in your notes. I want you to put these in there because these are some last statements Paul wants you to really take away from everything that he's doing in here as he's closing this up. Because we're in chapter 13 and we're pretty much going to close out 13 today. However, we only have a couple of chapters after that. But Paul is making sure we're going to take away a few tools from this speech that he have, which we need to understand and to where we not only just understand it, but we need to apply it to our lives. So, I'm not going to be mentioning them up here because there's no reason to. However, in the back, I want you to just make sure that you make notes on that. So with everybody, we're going to get ready. We're going to go and we're going to look at the scripture. Then when we finish up, we can go in the back and get those. And then also with the precepts that's going with it. A lot of people that was over here with Romans, it came out to where it's a lot simpler and a lot easier for me to do the precepts and everything in the back. For the simple reason is, when I get back there, I can also give you a little bit more explanation in why you placement on the way you place, the precepts there. It kind of helps out a little bit more. It cuts down time over on this side. So that's one of the reasons why we end up doing that. However, what we're going to do, we're going to pick this up and we're going to get into Romans chapter 13 and we're going to pick that up because where we left off at is verse 11. And we're going to highlight this and we're going to look at that. But we want to make sure everything still looks the same as from what I wanted you guys to do is to meditate on this. This was a reminder because this was a wake-up call for us. This was actually a wake-up call for us, and hopefully so, everyone took the time, meditated on it this past week. So hopefully you did that. And as it says in verse 10, love worketh no ill. For that reason, love is fulfilling the law. Hopefully you meditated on that and you would have got the answers. And it wouldn't have been from myself or anyone else. You would have got it either from the book. And most time, you would have actually seen it in nature. That was the catch on that meditation. That was the part of the exercise on what we was doing. But we're going to pick this up at verse 11. And it says, including that. So it's part of the same thing that we're going through. Including that, knowing, knowing the time that now it is high time. Excuse me. Awake out of sleep. So he going to give you the full understanding from what he just said. It says, "For now is our salvation nearer than when we believed." We're going to unpack this and we're going to get into it. And we need to understand this because our salvation is nearer than what we first believed. So when we unpacking this, we have to really pay attention to how he's craftily placing this, because we have to awake out of our flesh. We have to awake out of our fleshly things, our flesh. If you know what I'm saying, we got to get away from doing fleshly deeds and thinking with the fleshly mind. We got to get away from that. It's time to wake up because salvation is near. Meaning it is closer to the end than we think. That's the point. We're going to look at something. We're going to see something else he wrote in Ephesians chapter 5, and we're going to look at it in verse 14 to help us out. We're going to go over here and we're going to look. And it says, "Wherefore," he says, "awake thou that sleepeth, including arise from the dead." See, he's telling us we have to rise. We have to bring ourselves up above flesh. It's not hard to do. It's not hard to do. But if we tie to something, he's going to be showing us, which we're going to be learning even in the back about abstinence comparing to discipline. And right here we see this. And he's saying we have to awake out of sleep and arise from the dead, including Christ shall give thee light. So once you come out of the dead, we should be able to follow the light. We should be able to follow Christ, because now we leaving that flesh there. And if you can't really pay attention to what that is, or some people can't vision that, what you have to do is the same thing they do in even the movies, where you see someone laying there that's in the movie dead, but then you see a spirit get up and look at that body, and it came up out that body, then it walks away or do whatever it's doing. It's the same thing we have to do. We have to lay this flesh down. And once it's laid down, don't go back and try to wake it up again. Don't go back and try to revive it. Because a lot of us have that issue. We'll try to go back and we'll try to revive flesh. It's one of the biggest problems we have. We even will petition God. We'll make a petition to him and make all these things to him and want him to do these things. And as soon as we walk away, the first thing we do is go back and pick that same thing up again. We'll pick that same thing up again with no problem whatsoever. So we have to pay attention to what's happening there. We have to pay attention to what's happening there. Because we go back and we pick up flesh, then we still is morally dead. In fact, he spoke more on this, and we'll see that also in 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, and we're going to look at verse 5 and we'll go down from there. As he's speaking to us and he's trying to wrap everything up, it says, "Ye are children of the light, including children of the day. But you are trapped, you're locked up in flesh. You like a seed in the dirt and you can't quite come out. You can't bloom as a flower as you should. But if you fight hard enough, you struggle, you fight, you can bust through that dirt." That's what he's saying here. Because you're children of the light. And he says, We are not of night nor of darkness. We are children of the light. So he says this for all the way through. He says, for that reason, therefore, let us not sleep, comparing do others. Others do the same like they do. That they will sleep. The reason they're going to sleep because they're going to get comfortable in what flesh do. They're going to get comfortable in the way flesh acts. They're going to get comfortable with the works of the flesh. We can't sleep. The end is closer than we know, which is kept in his hands. So we don't know. So we just have to be ready. And if we're not ready and we get caught asleep, we're going to have a problem. So it says, but let us watch and be sober. Meaning don't be out there also being as one drunken. Because he's going to talk about this. Actually, he's going to talk about this. We might well go on down to verse 7, which is part of it anyway. And he's saying this. It says, for they that sleep in the night, including they that be drunken, are drunken in night. Meaning, even when you drunken in night because you're asleep, and then you drinking, think about at night and you're drunk. See, I've never been drunk, so I don't drink. But the main thing is, I've seen people drunk, and it's worse if it's at night, because they're going to stumble and fall every time. And we can't be that way. But he's comparing us the same way as one drunken. So it wouldn't matter if I drank or not. If I didn't wake out of sleep, I'm still compared to one that is drunken. There's no difference. But we got to get out to sleep. Because if we continue to stumble with the wiles of the flesh, this is a promise. Flesh and blood cannot inherit the kingdom of God. This is what we got to remember. We have to sit there. You look at flesh and you might go look in the mirror like, I can't do this no more. You might have to look in the mirror and talk to self. I can't do this no more. Flesh, you get me in more trouble than anything. Never forget this as Paul, he's closing this up, and we're going to look at something in Romans chapter 1 verse 32. Remember Paul said this. we was back here over a year and a half ago. And Paul said that. He said, knowing the judgment of God, the doctrine and teaching of God, they that which commit things are worthy of death. So he done taught us one way, and we doing something else. And we doing things according to the flesh. Meaning you did it so good, you worthy of death. Not only do the same, but have pleasure in doing them. Have pleasure in doing this. Fully knowing the doctrine of flesh is going to end up giving us death. This is something for us, I'm talking about, to personally think about when you walking or talking or just thinking. All the works that you have done according to the flesh will profit you absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. But it's going to make you worthy of death. Because you refusing to lay down the works of the flesh. Every flesh act is your imagination. It produces the rewards. And at the end, your reward is death. Death. Not death here, because this, and what most people always mix up, we're going, before we move forward, but just before people get mixed up, people sit there and say, well, that's going to give us death here. No. Death here is already guaranteed. So that's already a promise. So always take this first death off the table. And what I'm saying is this. Is 2 deaths can happen. But you should only die once. But 2 deaths can happen. Meaning, the first death is already guaranteed that we all going to get. That's guaranteed for everybody on the face of this earth. You're going to get that one. So, when he's talking, Paul is talking death in here. He's not talking about that death, the first one. That one's not being talked about at all because it's already guaranteed. So it's like, why talk about it? We already know we're going to die. That's what I'm saying. This is what Paul is conveying to us. Why talk about this first death and we already know it's going to happen? So it makes no sense to talk about it because it's going to happen. So what he's saying here is worthy of that second death. That's the death that we can get away from it, or we can run towards it. And some of us going to run towards it because we're not really personally knowing that the doctrine of the flesh is wrong, but we have a pleasure in doing wrong. That's the problem. Hopefully this is what's going on, because sin is these evil thoughts. And actually, let's take this a little bit further. We're going to look at Romans chapter 3 and pick it up at 23. And we just getting full thoughts and different pieces from Paul on what he wants us to know, that salvation is nearer than we believe, meaning the end is near. And it says this in Romans chapter 3, verse 23. For all have sinned. If anybody ever tell you they never sinned, now you know this is right pinned here. And if Christ allows this to be in the Bible, evidently it's true. So if someone's sitting there saying that's not true, then you need to go talk to God. Because in his book that he said that he gathered, he's saying that all have sinned. So if someone say they don't sin, that's telling you right there. Because sin was imputed to us with flesh just being on us. It was already imputed because we was in flesh. So people sit there and say, oh, well, what about Jesus? What about Yahushua? What about him? What do that say? For all have sinned. Was he in a sinful body? Yeah. Did he commit sin? No. But was sin imputed to him? 100%. So that's still in effect. See, just because he didn't sin don't mean sin was imputed to him. See, this is the problem people have a problem with. Because this man did not sin. And they sit there, well, he didn't sin, so that makes this wrong. No, it was right. Because he was in flesh. Flesh is sin. So if flesh is sin, that's why he even told John said, hey, I have need to be baptized of you. He said, no, we got to fulfill our righteousness. You have to condemn this flesh. Care less who I am. You do. You got to condemn this flesh. Because this flesh is sin. That's why I said, and they came short of the glory of God. The same reason flesh and blood cannot inherit the kingdom of God. Seeing these examples was proven of sin. That sin cannot come into the kingdom. These examples after examples of sin, proven time and time again that we all have sinned, and if you sin, you coming up short. Clearly coming up short. This is the problem. In fact, I want to show you a little bit more. We're going to look at Romans over here, because we getting some stuff from Paul. We're going to look at Romans chapter 8, and we're going to pick it up at verse 6. And actually, it's already highlighted. So let me unhighlight this here. Well, at least I want to unhighlight right now. Okay, there we go. It says, for to be carnally minded. That meaning you're going to stay asleep. Because you sleep if you carnally minded. You sleep. It's no ifs, no ands, no buts, but you sleep. If you carnally minded. And carnally minded is death. That's a full thought there. So if you carnally minded is 100% death. Meaning you're going to do the things according to the flesh. But to be spiritually minded, meaning you have to mortify that flesh. Is life and peace. Saying the same thing over there with what we was talking about earlier. If you sit there and he talking about that death is going to happen. This is why he's not talking about that here. Because just because now you walking with Christ don't mean that this fleshly body is now permitted to live forever. See, this is the problem people have. This is why a lot of people don't believe the Bible. Because it talks about death and life. But when they look at death and life, they're looking at this one death and this one life just here. So if they're looking at this one death, this one life that is just here. So if you're doing the things that's according to scripture, now you should live forever. That's not the truth. But that's the problem people have. And it's understandable because they don't understand scripture as a whole. Because they don't believe in God. Because God tells you that we got to come out of the flesh to where you can see this life and peace that's forever. But if you carnally minded, people will sit there. You see people even do, they do the having their heads cut off and different things. One second. Yeah, they doing these, they have their heads cut off. And these scientists, and they'll freeze the bodies and freeze the heads, and saying, you know, when they find cures for certain things, that they will put their bodies, their heads back on the bodies, and you know, I'm telling you, it's crazy, but this is actually really real. And you have people doing this even today. They're paying these millions of dollars to these places where they will decapitate your head. They take your head off. And some of them are have diseases and different things. You know what they'll do? They'll freeze them. And saying when they find the cure, they can bring them back and they'll revive them and heal them or put them on another body. Now, the scientists know who's doing this. They already know they ain't gonna bring them back. They know that, but they did, and they got your money. Technically, that's all they know. We got your money. We get you to do this. Well, I got your money. Because it ain't possible you ain't coming back. In fact, it's so good about that to where they can live the life of luxury by doing this to thousands, millions even, that can pay these outrageous fees for doing that. And they can sit there and they can't go to court because the people's heads cut off. number one, even their loved ones can't do anything. Because if they say, well, they found the cure for cancer, they can sit there and tell them still, we have to do our research and make sure that this is real, absolute. To where we do this, we don't want to mess it up. They can introduce anything from that point. Meaning, there's no reason they have to bring that person back. Because they can't. Because once it's once they done did that, it's a wrap. But people do it. People do it, people pay for it. And that's still being carnally minded, believing they can live forever based according to the flesh, not according to the spirit. So people pay that. So these are people who carnally minded. And if you're carnally minded, you're going to be hidden, or the message will be hidden from you. In fact, we're going to see this here. We're going to see that. Being carnally minded. In 2 Corinthians chapter 4, we're going to pick it up at verse 3. It's saying, but providing our gospel. So it's saying providing our message be hid. So providing the message, and this is still Paul and I'm talking, if it's hidden, it is hid to them that are lost. So it's hid to them that are lost. They sleep. Don't get out of lost and sleep as two different things. He's saying the same thing. But they're lost. They're asleep. Because this message that they can't comprehend. They can't comprehend that. Actually, well, I'll tell you what. Let's do this to try to better understand that. Let's go to Jeremiah. We're going to look at Jeremiah chapter 13. To help us out a little bit, to bring a little bit more clarity to this. In Jeremiah chapter 13, verse 10, it says, this evil people, which refuse to hear my words, which walk in their imaginations of their hearts, they're lost. They're asleep. So the message is hidden because they're asleep. They refuse to hear the words of Christ. In fact, it goes on more. It says they walk after other gods. Meaning the same thing like I was saying earlier. A scientist would tell them, well, you're going to die if you stay here, but you pay this $2 or $3, $4 million. We can decapitate your head and we can freeze it. And when we come up with a cure, we can bring you back and cure you, and you can live. And some people is so fearful of dying forever in their head. And there are quite a few people that did that. So they're walking in their own imaginations, because some people will walk after other gods. These are other people who's telling them how you can live forever. It says to serve them and to worship them, so it shall even be as this girdle, which is good for nothing. See, the reason why it's not even a funny case, or it's not really even funny nowhere, because people, when they want to separate you from something, they do whatever they need to do it. And the biggest seller and to get you to spend your most money is fear. Once you have fear of something, you can get caught up in everything. Once they can sell you fear. See, fear have people doing things that's unwise. Fear can make you make unwise decisions. Fear can change your entire life? Fear. Just fear alone. And the fear is death. That already promised to come to us the first time. And death of all flesh. You cannot get around it. You're not going to beat it. Death is going to happen. And people have fear of that. Why? It's going to happen. You can't get around it. You need to watch for the second one. That's the one. You have time here to get it right, to save yourself from the second one. However, you're going to live according to the flesh and give that away. Meaning the second death. You're going to take it. You're going to purchase it with the flesh. Because you're going to walk after other gods. And we don't want to do that. So this evil people is how he's saying it, which refuse to hear my words, would walk in their imaginations of their hearts, and walk after other gods to serve them, to worship them, even be as this girdle, which is good for absolutely nothing. So the gospel is hidden from these people. The words of God walking in their own imaginations. Oh yeah, I can take this pill here. I know you've seen it on TV. They have it always on TV. Take this pill and it'll take 20 years off your life. You can look like you did 20 years ago. You'll see this constantly. You'll see this all over the place. Where people is walking after other gods. In fact, it gets even more in here. Let me put this in here now. In Zechariah, we're going to go over there to chapter 7. We're going to pick it up at verse 11. And Christ said this. He said, but they refused to hearken, which Jeremiah just said this, and pulled away their shoulder. So even when he taps you on the shoulder, you pull your shoulder away because you don't want to hear it. You don't want to hear what he has to say. And stop their ears that they should not hear. But you're going to pay more attention to these other gods. We're going to pay more attention to these other gods. We do this and we don't think nothing about it. Because people can tell us all these things. All these things we'll do. In fact, we'll be picking it back up at 2 Corinthians. We're going to look at verse 4. And Paul says that. He says, in whom God of this world, you see this, in whom the God of this world, actually, let me let me do this. It's telling you, in whom the God of this world, these things, the God of this flesh, where all these things is happening, have blinded the minds of them which believe not. Lest the light of the glorious gospel of Christ, who is the image of God, should shine unto them. He's blinded it. Telling you how you can live forever in the flesh. And we're blinded from that. This is our biggest problem that we have. Because we done spent all this time. You can see people that sit there. And one of the funniest things is, I never forget, you can actually see it on YouTube. It's a gentleman. He was 109. He was in Florida. And this black guy, when he turned 109, they was already, what they were trying to do, they was trying to take his property, because he had, I think he had a lot of property, but he was born and raised on that land. And the city or the state wanted it. And as they wanted it, they wanted to just kind of force him out of it. He's 190. We're going to force him out of it. He ain't going to live much longer. And they're going to force him out of it. And he don't want to leave. So as they doing this, and when he had a birthday, they asked him, they said, what is the key for you to live this long? And he looked right at him and said, I eat eggs and bacon every morning. Clearly lost. But people go to someone like that, who is 109, and the only thing they want to know is how did he live that long? And the one that granted that was God. So he just saying, eggs and bacon, I eat every morning. And people probably sit there now, no telling when he said that, because he said it on TV. So when he said that, you don't know who he influenced with that statement. Because you might have had somebody sit there and say, wait a minute, this man's 109. And he eggs and bacon every morning. And if I want to live to get at least 109, I'm going to eat bacon and eggs every morning. Because he's doing it, so I need to do it. You don't know who he influenced to do that. This is why it's so important when you walking around and you making statements, and when they sitting there saying something as that, because just as I said, people have a great fear of dying. When all flesh is going to die. And people have a great fear of that. So when he made that statement, and he's 109, you have somebody sitting there, man, I want to get that. I want to get that age. I want to live. And that's what they sit there and they incorporate that into their daily regimens. This is the problem we have. Because the Most High is the controller of life and death. And that man's life is what was granted by God. His death is going to come by God. Because everybody, as soon as you're born, as soon as you come out, you thinking this is the beginning of their life, but as soon as they come out with a beginning, the Lord already has the end date. Already stamped before they even came out the womb. You're going to die at this age. Already happened. Already in the works. And that's our problem. So if you work towards what you need to be doing, more so playing around and trying to see what you can do according to the flesh, and then who dies with the most toys wins, you're going to enjoy that second death. But salvation, for them who want to really seek salvation, who really want salvation and understand what salvation is, because most people don't know what salvation is. And you being saved from sin and death, that's nearer than what you really thought the first time. It's closer to where you believed. Meaning this, and you get down in verse 12. He says, the night is far spent. The day is at hand. The day is at hand. So it's a catchphrase, and he got in here, and I'm gonna share this with you. It's something I don't normally kind of really get into, but I need to share with you just so. So he said, the night is far spent, and the day is at hand. The reason he's saying this is it's a catchphrase he used, and he do it in different ways. See, because he also tells you, and a lot of them tell you, make your election sure, because you had the power to do it. He's saying the same thing here. It's as though I say, the day is at hand, but he's saying the light is in your power. That's all he's saying. Nothing more, nothing less. That's in your power. So if you choose it, that's up to you. If you don't, that's up to you. This is the issue. But he says, let us therefore cast off the works. That's why he's saying that. Because it's in your power. It's completely 100% in your power. He said, let us cast off the works of darkness, meaning the flesh, and let us put on the armor of light. You see how he says it in different ways, but it depends on which letter you go and read. And he always going to say it in a different way. So if we're going to cast off this flesh, we got to cast off the works of the night. We got to cast off the works of the night. We're casting off the works of the flesh. Technically, that's all he's saying. And those works of the flesh is just unfruitful things, and we get into things that we shouldn't be doing. And he constantly saying this, and we're going to look at this part here. We're going to look at Ephesians, and we're going to go to chapter 5. In verse 11, it says this. It says, I have no fellowship with unfruitful works of darkness. It's talking about, so he have no fellowship with the flesh. Technically, that's all he's saying. That's all he's saying technically. In fact, actually, I'll tell you what, this is even better to show you where he got more into this. I'm going to go to the same book, but we're going to go into a different place. I want to keep them both up. We're going to look at Ephesians chapter 6. And we're going to go to verse 11. And show you why he's saying that. So what we have to do, as he's saying this in verse 11, I want to get I don't mix that up. So it's saying, so we shouldn't have no fellowship with unfruitful works of darkness, meaning we shouldn't be having no works of the flesh, but rather reprove them. It says, so what we need to do is put on the whole armor of God, that we may withstand the wiles of the which is the God of flesh. He's not saying nothing really complex for us to get. So when we pack all that up and we look at it, he's telling us, long as we stay in the flesh, we screwing up. We have to take this flesh off. That's why you see him saying that over in verse 12. He says, let us put on the armor of light. That's the armor of God. And if we're not willing to do that, the worst part is we promising ourselves death. Not this death, but the death to come. That's a promise. This is not complex. This is, the main thing is, as Paul, he didn't put in all this work and what he wanted us to know. And now he done summoned this up. And we had a benefit, not only to see it in Romans, but we had a benefit to where we can go to other letters to piece it all together in precepts to see the full understanding of what Paul is trying to convey to us to get us to understand. In fact, let's look at something over there with Christ. We're going to go to John. Let's look at John. We're going to go to chapter 3 and picking it up at verse 19. And Christ says that, he says, including, this is the condemnation, that light is come unto the world, and men love darkness rather than light, because of their deeds, because of their works. Because that's all deeds mean, is works. Because of their deeds, their works are evil. This is why he came. He's telling you why he came. If he came here because our deeds were evil, our works was evil, and he said he didn't come to save the righteous, he came to save sinners. So if somebody's saying they're righteous, okay, I didn't come for you. It's that simple. And he can keep moving. Because you saying you're righteous. But he's saying already, all of us have sinned. But if you say you haven't sinned, cool. I keep moving. I keep moving. Because we do evil deeds, evil works. And light is coming to the world to give us understanding of our worriness. But he's telling us over there, but we love darkness. We can stand in the mirror and we will, I promise you, a lot of us stand right in front of a mirror. And no matter what, we can sit there and think of a work that we did that was bad. And no matter what, we will sit there and contemplate and contemplate and contemplate and contemplate and make it right. We do this. We do this like clockwork. And he's telling you right up front, and have no fellowship with unfruitful works, the darkness. But we do. But we do. Because we say we put on the whole armor of God. And we didn't. We put on the whole armor of Satan. The whole armor of Satan. And didn't think nothing about it. And then justify why we put it on. Justify it. Why we put it on. In fact, let's look at something. Let's go back over here. We're gonna go back to Ephesians. We gotta look at Ephesians. We're gonna go back to chapter 5 and picking it up at verse 11. And actually, I already got it over there. Well, I got it over there, so I just do it. I just keep it here. I just keep it over here. So it's telling you, you have no unfruitful works of darkness, but prove them. But I'm gonna show you why he really want that done, because the fellowship is telling you, and this is what I wanted to do. Because I want to take you to another place. Because that's the issue right there. Is the fellowship. And the fellowship is communing with one another. That's the problem. That's why we're going to put that over here, but that's okay. We'll do it over here. And the reason why, in Revelation chapter 18, and actually it's already highlighted, it tells you, it says, and I heard another voice from heaven saying, now understand what is coming, another voice out of heaven saying. Some of y'all don't even hear me. See, this is where it just gets shameful for us all, because the word came down from heaven. The voice, they came down from heaven. Some of y'all not even see. We're not going to pay attention to this. And it's saying, I heard a voice from heaven saying, "Come out of her, my people. Be not partakers of her sin, and receive not her plagues." the Word leaped out of his royal throne as a fierce man of war into the land of destruction to give us this warning. Give us this warning, we chose not to take it. We chose not to look at it. Why? See, this is why Paul is so blunt about what he's talking about. So the point is this: is we are having conversations with the afflictions of Christ, who is to you should be your strength and out of the correcting for us. See, because that's who should be our strength every time. It's Christ. That should be the one correcting us and having no fellowship with unfruitful works of darkness. He, Christ, should be the one correcting us. You want to think about doing some evil works? You want to have these sinful thoughts? Christ is the one who's going to reprove them. He's telling you this the entire time. So we keep that. And Christ is going to always put a rod to us to make sure we straighten out. In fact, let me put this one up to where we can all be on the same page. We're going to be all on the same page here. In Philippians chapter 4, verse 13. And I'm saying this because we want to be all on the same page here. And he says this. What Paul is telling you, because he's telling you he don't have no fellowship with unfruitful works. He has none. So since he has none, he says, I can do all things through Christ, which strengthens me. Because he's not having no fellowship with darkness. So Christ is going to strengthen him in whatever way Christ sees fit. He tells you this. He goes more. Verse 14. Notwithstanding ye well done, that ye do communicate with my afflictions. See, because people will sit there and say they have no fellowship, but they'll sit there and say, we cannot forsake the assembling of ourselves in this place, and they doing it under condemnation. And it's unfruitful works. Unfruitful works when we're doing that. So this is the problem where we having this issue. Because we can say we have on the armor of God and we're not fellowshipping. See, when you are fellowshipping with darkness, Christ is not strengthening you. In fact, since we can still pull more from this, let's pull a little bit more. We're gonna look at Ephesians. We're gonna go to chapter 4. Oh, went too far. We're gonna go to Ephesians chapter 4. And we're gonna look at verse 18. And I don't care how we look at this. It says this. It says, having understanding darkened. Because if we are fellowshipping with even people who's teaching us unfruitful works of darkness, Christ is not strengthening you. Satan is. We just seen where God, he's the God of flesh. But it's darkened. It says being alienated from the life of God. So you personally alienating yourself. So it's not him doing it, you doing it. And everybody want to sit there and believe that we're the ones that God alienated himself from us, but we did that from him. See, it's never us. When have we separated from you, God? He said, you separated from me. And we'll say, when have we done that? That's the first thing that come out of our mouth. Because it's never us. It's always someone else. It's never us. And we have an understanding darkened and being alienated from the life of God through the ignorance that is in them because of the blindness of their hearts. It's right in front of you. This is right in front of you. So we can't get around it. We can't get around this. But we constantly always want to put blame elsewhere besides where it should be at. It should be on the person that chose to fellowship with unfruitful works. And whatever one did that is the fellowship that they have. And that is the ignorance that is in them. In fact, it goes on more. In verse 19. It says, who being past feelings, having given themselves over to lasciviousness, to the works of uncleanness with greediness. That's what we do. We give ourselves over. I don't care what the sin is. You just think of that right there. We give ourselves over to lasciviousness. In all works. All works. So I don't care what it is. Anything that is the works of the flesh is all uncleanness with greediness, and meaning we want a bunch of it. Fellowship with unfruitful works of darkness. See, you can peg hold anything you want there. That's anything that's unclean. Any works that is unclean, peg it there, and that's what he's saying. So we are saying, oh no, we're going to put on the whole armor of light. We're going to put on Christ. But how you putting on Christ and you fellowshipping with unfruitful works? Tell me, how did that work? I'd love to know how that worked. Please tell me how that worked. Why do you think Paul checked Peter now? Peter and them want to teach about how to be followers of Christ, but he's fellowshipping with Gentiles, heathens. Really? Wait a minute, Peter. How are you doing this? How are you going to tell people to be a follower of Christ, but you doing the things that heathens do? The same here in this same arena. You telling people, okay, you're a follower of Christ, but you do things contrary to Christ. And doing it in greediness. And you're doing a lot of it. I don't care what it is, because it's in all uncleanness. I don't care what it is. We doing it. This is what we're doing. In fact, let's go down to 20. And he got a full thought there. You got a full thought. Actually, I'm gonna change the color on full thoughts. I'm gonna change that. It says, but ye, but us. You can say, but you, but I'm just gonna put, but us, because this is what we do. So it's saying, but ye, even though he's directing it to people, I'm just gonna say, but us. But us have not learned have not so learned Christ. Because we fellowshipping with unfruitful works. I don't care what it is. We fellowshipping with it. Saying and lying, we putting on the whole armor of God. Don't make sense, do it? Don't make absolutely no sense. But he got more. He got more here. It's saying, providing so be that ye heard him, including have been taught by him, as comparing as the truth in Yahweh. It's what we just said. Something we just said and something we just talked about. But no matter what, we're going to justify what we do. Justify it. Oh, well, I'll tell you what. If I change this around, I can. Well, we're going to tell you what. No, it is their fault. You want to tell you what? It's not. It wasn't me. Oh, no. Yeah, you done talked yourself out of your own lie. Somebody done taught you contrary to what the Bible said, and you believed it. And you believed it. God said he don't change. But they said he changed. He did this. And guess what? We believed it. Don't say you didn't, because we did. Because we did. We into those type of lies to always put us in the power position to where we come out on the better end, even though we doing fellowshipping with unfruitful works. But he's telling you, have no fellowship with unfruitful works. But we fellowship with that. It's right there. If you don't like it, tear it out your Bible. In fact, he got a little bit more for us. This might well going on down. It says this. It says that ye, I just put us. I'm just going to put on ye, I'm just going to put us. But y'all put off concerning formal conversation of old men, which is corrupt according to deceitful lust. It's laugh so bad you gotta laugh because it just hurts. It just hurts that this is us. I'm talking like clockwork. This is us like clockwork. In Hebrews chapter 12, pick it up at verse 1, it says, wherefore saying we also are compassed about with so great witnesses, let us lay aside every weight, including the sin which doeth so easily. Actually, I need to do this. I need to do this. So easily beset us. It says, including let us run with patience the race that is set before us. It's interesting. 100% interesting. We can easily be beset. But people said, oh no, I can't be easily beset. Yeah, you can. Yeah, you can. You see right before that it says in sin. You see right. Let me put it here. In the sin, which do easily beset us. So don't say it don't easily beset you. It do. It easily besets us. But that's why I say the problem is, we'll sit there and say it don't, and it did. Because we done conjured up in our minds a way around it. We good at doing that. We don't think we ain't good at doing this. I'm talking about some of us are highly professional in doing that. In fellowshipping with unfruitful works. Saying they have on the whole armor of God and they don't. In fact, in verse 23 it says this. It says, and be renewed in the spirit of your mind. Translation. So if you're going to be renewed in your mind or the spirit, it means the flesh has to be mortified. Just some advice to where we can work that out the better way. Just some advice for all of us. So if we're going to be renewed in the mind, advice to each and every one of us, meaning we all have to mortify the flesh. That's what that's saying. If we're going to renew the mind, we got to kill the flesh. So this is all our advice for all of us. Each and every one of us. We do that, that's what we have to do. That's exactly what we have to do. So we have to put on this new clothing, this new man. In fact, actually, I'll tell you what, let's you might want to get all what Paul's saying. Let's do this. Actually, I'll tell you what, before I go there, let's do this. I do it over there real quick. It says, and that ye put on the new man, which is after God is created in righteousness and true holiness. Did you catch it? Did we catch that? Or did someone miss it? Because if we missed it, we're going to miss all of it. If we miss it, we're going to miss all of it. Because he actually going to talk about the same thing again, but he's going to talk about it in another way. So that's why I say I'm going to leave that there. Because we can easily be beset behind this stuff. But we're going to go somewhere. That's why I say I'm going to leave that there, because I want to go somewhere over here. We're going to go to Colossians chapter 3. Picking it up at verse 8. And so if we're going to put on this new man and have this new mind, and we're going to have this new way of thinking, we're going to do all these new things. And it tells us right here, it says, but now ye, us, also put off all these things. So if we put off this stuff, so this is the recommendation from Paul to us. This is the recommendation from Paul to each and every one of us. If we mortify the body, renew our minds, we're going to put off all these things. We're going to put off anger. We're going to put off wrath. We're going to put off malice. We're going to put off blasphemy. We're going to put off filthy communications out of your mouth. All these things are going to be put off. Think about it. All those things are going to be put off. Renewing your mind. You're renewing your mind, all those are out. You can't commit blasphemy with your body. You're going to do it with your mouth. Filthy communication. In fact, it even got more here in verse 9. Forethought, I'm going to go ahead and change the color on that one. It says, lie not one to another. You ain't lying one to another. You ain't doing these things. All these things stop. All that stop. Seeing that ye have put off You done took off the flesh. You put off the old man with his works, with his deeds. It's telling you this right up front. We done took them off. We done took those off. Being renewed. That's the benefit. Now we being renewed. And it has a great thing that if we do this, because if we sitting there and we saying that we putting on this whole armor of God, he's building that up. Where he's talking about, that's why he says you put on the armor of light. That's why he's saying that. And he's saying that for this particular reason. And he's building that up. And we're going to look at verse 10. It says, and have put on the new man, which is renewed in knowledge. You see how you're doing that? So now you're renewed in knowledge. Not renewed in all this other stuff that people tell you. And you go do this, and you go do that, and you go do this, and you go do that. Because the first thing somebody say is they holy. Oh, I'm holy. Are you holy? I'm blessed and highly favored. Ask them how. It should be a knowledge. It should be a knowledge. But watch what it says here. And it says this, after the image of him that created him. I'm talking. He's nailing us. He's nailing us to the cross every time. Meaning he's nailing his flesh to the cross. Because he actually quoting this as he's saying. So if we put on that whole armor of light, and that's why he's saying it in that way. And Christ is going to be the one going to be getting us correct all the time. So he's saying this all the time. And we're going to look at verse 27. We're going to look at verse 27. It says, so God created man in his own image. In the image God created he him, male and female created he them. In the image of him that created him is what we after. That's the image we after. That's the image we put on. So we put on that image, we're good. But some of us don't want to bend towards that image because it's hard for us to let go of the works of the flesh. And we have to learn to let that go. So we have to choose. If we want to be after the image of him that created us, male and female, then we have to renew something. We have to renew something. We have to change that conversation, the way we walk, talk, think, and breathe. In fact, in verse 13, it says this. It says this. It says, let us walk honestly as in the day, not rioting and drunkenness and chambering and wantonness, not in strife or envying. This is all part of the thing. Now you see why he's saying that. Now we see why all this stuff, because we wouldn't be going through all these things. So if we put on Christ, the whole, not part of it, put on the whole armor. The whole armor. And we wouldn't be going through, and we do this honestly. He's telling us right there. And what we're going to be wanting this down here for. So he's saying this, and as we need to look, and he says it right here. It makes it really clear. He says, put on ye the Lord Yahweh Shai the Messiah. So it's the creator of salvation, the anointed one. That's all they're saying. So we have to put on this armor. In that way, it says, and make no provisions. Not one. That's why it's been on flesh the entire time. That's why we've been talking about flesh, because that is our actual problem. It's flesh. And it says, and make no provisions for the flesh to fulfill the lust thereof. Basically, fulfill any lust for the flesh. I'm talking he's so clear, but that's why the point and the focus is on flesh. So as he's like wrapping all this up, putting it in a bowl and delivering us what's going on, he's showing us how we to be abstinence as a sign of discipline. And that's what we're going to be looking at in the back. As I said, we're going to go back there, and we're going to I'm going to do the precepts back there, as I told people earlier, because I can kind of give you guys some overview of a few things as I do that, as we go through to understand how everything is actually working. But what I'm saying is, when Paul is winding this up, and I'm talking about, he's putting it in a beautiful bowl for us to get it. So I hope that each and every one of us got that, and we'll be looking at verse 14, chapter 14 next week, as he's winding this down. And it's been almost 2 years we've been marching down this road of Romans. So hopefully that we have taken a lot from this as he's winding this up, and we have a lot to meditate on. We have a lot to think about. We have a lot to do, but we have some work we have to do in the back. So I need to, one second, I need to put that link in there so you guys can see it. So give me one hot second. Just give me one hot second there. So, because the link is not there. And the reason I had to move that link for other reasons. But, so what I do now is removing the link, and then I put it in. So if you refresh your screens, you'll actually see the link now. Yeah, so if you refresh your screens, you can see the link. And you're more than welcome to come back and to get this information that we share in the back, and help you to understand more so what Paul said, and then see the pattern that he followed. And that's what I'm gonna give you, the outlines and his understanding on why he did things a certain way and how he built up to it. So you're more than welcome to come in the back. We welcome you back there. And you see the requirement is that camera must be on. So with that, we look for everybody to come in the back, and you come back there. You're going to get the overview, and then from that we can separate. And then on tomorrow, we will be picking up. And actually, I forgot to put in one piece that Deacon Micah do have a teaching going on this afternoon. We do have that, and actually I need to pull that up real quick before I commence. I do want to make sure that is there. One second, because he did send that over. And so if you give me one quick minute, I can get that in there, because I do want to show what he's actually have a teaching tomorrow. Teaching today. So I want to get that there. And here you go, right here. So give me one quick second, and I can get that in there. So 1 second here, real quick. And let me pull this in there. So just bear with me one moment. And we have that there. Now, why didn't do it that way? There we go. No, that's not it. Is that it? Let me see. Oh yeah, that is it. That is it. Okay. I don't know how that slipped me. Okay. So what I'm gonna do is show that. So that's the one I want to show. So Deacon Micah, he has a teaching at 3 o'clock Pacific time and 5 o'clock Central time and 6 o'clock Eastern time. If a man have two wives, he's actually going to be doing a teaching on that. He's going to be running the preceptual teaching, which is within the written communication. So he will be doing that. So if you get the chance, make sure you can join him over there. And he's over there with the OKC, King James Bible University. So make sure you be able to where you can catch that there. So with that, everybody, if you get a chance, you can go into the live area. It says join the live study notes overview. You'll see that down in the description to where you can join in. So with that, we'll part here. And until next time, I say to everyone, Shalom.